Picture this. You're a young Viking warrior named Bjorn, barely 18 summers old, sitting on a rough-hewn bench in a chieftain's longhouse. The air is thick, a suffocating cocktail of wood smoke, roasting meat, spilled ale, and the damp, earthy smell of dozens of unwashed bodies pressed together. The roar of the fire in the central hearth is matched by the roar of your comrades, their boasts and laughter echoing off the soot-blackened timbers. They are celebrating a successful raid, drinking from polished horns, their faces ruddy in the flickering light, their beards glistening with grease. A skald, a poet-historian, is chanting tales of Odin's cunning and Thor's might, stories of gods who seize their destiny with iron fists, who take what they desire without hesitation. But you are not listening to the skald. Your attention is fixed across the fire, where Leif, a warrior who stood shield to shield with you on the blood-soaked shores of Northumbria, catches your eye. There is no softness in his gaze, only the hard, gray steel of the northern sea. Yet, in the space of a heartbeat, a silent understanding passes between you, an acknowledgement of a shared secret more perilous than any Saxon blade. In this hall, a man's worth is measured by the strength of his arm, the weight of his arm rings, and the sons he can sire. To be a man is to be a rock, an unyielding pillar of masculinity. But what happens when that rock begins to crack? This is not the tale of the berserker Viking of legend, driven by gold, glory, and lust. This is the untold history of a far more intricate reality. A world where honor balanced on a razor's edge, where the fierce brotherhood of the shield wall blurred into forbidden desire in the smoke-filled longhouse, and where the wrong kind of love could cost you not just your life, but your very humanity. This is the story of Bjorn and Leif, two warriors bound by a secret that could bring death not from an enemy's sword, but from the hands of their own kin. Before we drag these hidden truths into the firelight, I need your help to keep these stories alive. If you're captivated by the raw, brutal realities of the past, strike that like button, share this saga with your friends, and subscribe for more journeys into forgotten history. Your support fuels this quest, uniting us across oceans and ages as we uncover these dangerous tales together. Drop a comment below. Where in the world are you joining this expedition from? Let's forge a community bound by the fire of history. Now, step into Bjorn's world, where the greatest shame was not to be called a coward, but to be called a woman. The Norse world was a crucible of power and perception, built on a brutal hierarchy where a man's worth was defined by his ability to dominate, to penetrate. Whether it was an enemy's shield wall with a spear, the earth with a plow, or a wife to produce heirs, was the essence of masculinity. Action, aggression, and dominance were the unyielding pillars of Viking identity. To be passive, to be receptive, was to be feminine, and in this society, there was no greater disgrace for a man than to be associated with the feminine. This wasn't merely a cultural quirk, it was a deeply ingrained belief, woven into the legal and spiritual fabric of their world, embodied in a single, devastating word: urgy. Urgy is a term that defies simple translation. It wasn't just about homosexuality or effeminacy, it was a profound stain, a spiritual and social curse that marked a man who willingly took the submissive, receptive role in a sexual act with another man. To be labeled Arger, an Arger man, was to be cast as less than human, a creature beneath contempt. The accusation, known as ni, was a weapon of unparalleled venom. Uttering it was so catastrophic that the law permitted the accused to kill the accuser on the spot, no questions asked. Such was the power of ni. An Arger man was seen as having surrendered his masculinity, rendering him weak, untrustworthy, and spiritually tainted. He lost all legal standing, unable to testify in court, inherit land, or claim honor. He became a social ghost, his presence an affront to those around him. The sagas, the epic poems that chronicled Norse life, are rife with examples of this weaponized shame. In the saga of the people of Laxardal, Rafn, enraged by his rival Kjartan, erects nesting, spite poles, carved with obscene depictions of Kjartan and his companion in submissive positions, a public shaming so severe it could ruin a man's life. This fear of being perceived as receptive created a dangerous paradox at the heart of Viking intimacy. The taboo wasn't necessarily about men lying together, it was about who held power. The dominant partner could escape the stain of urgy, even gain prestige by asserting his masculinity through domination. Forcing another man into submission, especially an enemy or someone of lower status, could be framed as a triumph of power, not a forbidden act. This twisted logic made sexual violence a tool of dominance, a way to symbolically feminize a rival. For Bjorn and Leif, equals in the shield wall, this created an impossible dilemma. Their bond lacked a clear hierarchy, and the silent question in the smoky air was not just about desire, but survival. Who would be dominant? Who submissive? If discovered, one might walk away with his reputation bruised but intact, the other would be branded Arger, his life forfeit. The all-male spaces of Viking life, longships on month-long voyages, winter camps, training yards, were cauldrons of tension, fostering deep homosocial bonds between warriors who relied on each other for survival. Yet these bonds, so vital to their existence, could never be openly expressed as anything more than brotherhood. A single misstep could turn love into a death sentence. As Bjorn locks eyes with Leif across the fire, the weight of this reality presses down on him. The warmth he feels is not from the hearth, but from a secret that could incinerate his world. The skald's voice shifts, moving from Thor's brute strength to a darker tale, the story of Odin, the Allfather. Odin, god of war and kings, the path to Valhalla, is also a paradox. He is the master of Seer, a magic so entwined with the feminine, so steeped in urgy, that any mortal man practicing it would be cast out. Seer was not the magic of swords or strength, but of prophecy, fate-weaving, and subtle manipulation, a power received, not taken. Practitioners, often women called Volar, entered trances, letting spirits speak through them in high-pitched chants, their posture passive. For a man, whose identity was built on action, to engage in Seer was to embrace the feminine, to become the vessel rather than the spear. To be a Simar was to be Arger by default. Yet Odin, the king of the gods, wielded this magic without shame, learning it from Freya to gain knowledge no sword could win. In the Lokasena, Loki accuses Odin of practicing Seer on Samsi, drumming like a witch, an unmanly act. Odin doesn't deny it, he counters with Loki's own transgressions, revealing a divine hypocrisy. The Allfather's power comes at the cost of his masculine honor, a sacrifice only a god could endure. For Bjorn, this is both a revelation and a warning. It suggests that masculinity's boundaries might bend, but for a mortal, crossing them means ruin. The Norse pantheon mirrors the men around Bjorn. Most are like Thor, loud and proud, their masculinity is shield against shame. Thor's humiliation, dressed as Freya to retrieve his hammer, is a comedic tale of rage and violence to reclaim honor. Loki, the shape-shifting trickster, embodies chaos, turning into a mare to birth Sleipnir, a cautionary figure of unchecked transgression. In Leif, Bjorn sees something different, a quiet cunning, a spark of Odin's dangerous wisdom. Is this what draws him? A connection beyond the Longhouse's brutal rules? The gods offer no solace, only a map of peril where power and perversion are a hair's breadth apart. The chieftain's voice cuts through the din, settling a dispute over a stolen sheep with swift authority. It reminds Bjorn that every action has a price. The Viking legal system, as seen in the Gragas, was obsessed with honor. Accusing a man of urgy, calling him Arg, or using kennings like the mare's mate, was a legal trigger, granting the accused the right to kill instantly. If proven true, the consequences were dire. A man became a full outlaw, stripped of humanity, a Vargar to be hunted. His property was seized, his marriage dissolved, his children fatherless. This fate haunts Bjorn. His desire for Leif is a death sentence, a path to erasure. The law allowed need to be weaponized, disqualifying a man from court or assembly. Sagas like Bjorn, champion of the Hittardal people, show men driven to violence to erase such insults, their lives consumed by the need to prove their masculinity. This legal paranoia extended to victims of sexual assault. A man raped was as tainted as one who consented, the shame of urgy inescapable. Revenge was the only path to redemption, leaving victims in a brutal bind, silence or vengeance. For Bjorn, even a lingering glance at Leif is a risk, easily twisted by a rival into a fatal accusation. The longhouse buzzes with laughter, but Bjorn hears the anxiety beneath, the constant performance of masculinity, the squaring of shoulders, the deepening of voices. The fire dims, embers glowing as warriors sleep, their snores a guttural rhythm. In this quiet, the weight of expectation lifts slightly. Bjorn wonders if this cage of masculinity is uniquely Norse or universal, thinking of the monks and merchants they've encountered on raids. Viking expansion brought their norms into conflict with other cultures. Monks, celibate and unarmed, were seen as arg, their passivity an invitation to domination. Christian chroniclers like Alcuin of York decried Viking brutality, but to Vikings, it was logical: weak men deserve subjugation. This clash fueled hatred, with Christians viewing Vikings as savages and Vikings seeing clergy as unmanly. As Christianity crept into Scandinavia, it brought new sexual ethics. Unlike orgy, which targeted the passive role, sodomy condemned all non-procreative acts, damning both partners. This shift merged social shame with spiritual terror. By the 11th century, as Iceland and Norway converted, pagan laws blended with ecclesiastical ones, reframing orgy as a sin against God. The fear of outlawry was joined by the threat of hellfire, making male bond suspect. Bjorn and Leif stand at this crossroads, their generation caught between old honor and new damnation. As the fire collapses into embers, Bjorn dares to hope. Is there a way to love in this hostile world? The sagas and laws say no, but history whispers of defiance. The Spralag, or foster brotherhood, offered a sacred bond where two men mingled blood, swearing loyalty as kin. Celebrated in sagas like Njal Saga, it allowed closeness that might otherwise be suspect, a potential cover for love disguised as brotherhood. The existence of orgy and me suggests such desires were common enough to warrant strict policing. Poetic kennings could hide coded messages, a private language for men like Bjorn and Leif. Liminal spaces, merchant travels, or the Varangian Guard, offered freedom from village scrutiny. Sagas hint at romantic bonds veiled as camaraderie, the grief for a shield brother more passionate than for a wife. As dawn filters through the smoke hole, Bjorn feels not hope, but resolve. The world is brutal, but not impossible. He meets Leif's gaze, considering a blood brotherhood to sanctify their bond. Their love must hide as loyalty, their passion channeled into battle, their tenderness cloaked in the shield wall. There was no liberation in the Viking Age, only the quiet courage of love in the shadows. This saga is a testament to human resilience, a story of survival against a culture bent on crushing it, written in silent glances and sacred oaths. It's a reminder of the courage to love against fear, to carve a place in a world of conformity. If this tale has stirred you, hit that like button, share it with those who need its fire, and subscribe to keep these histories alive. Comment below, where are you watching from, and what does this story mean to you? Together, let's keep the flame of history burning, celebrating those who dare to love against all odds. The saga continues. Join us, stay fierce, and let's uncover the next chapter.